I was sure my bloodline would end with me. Doctors had spoken their verdict years ago. No children. No hope. I buried the ache under work, wealth, and empty nights. My name is Daniel Cole, 35 years old, millionaire CEO of a real estate empire. People saw the tailored suits and the calm smile. No one saw the quiet rooms of my mansion. No one heard the silence after charity. Callous that night, the city glowed gold against the rain. A canceled meeting left me stranded outside a quiet cafe. Woman in a yellow safety vest sat on a bench, sipping tea from a paper cup. Her name was Maya, mid-20s, dark hair falling over her shoulder. Her hands trembled from exhaustion. Not fear, she noticed me first. "Is the cafe closed already?" she asked. Her voice was soft but firm. I nodded and offered her my umbrella. She laughed lightly, a sound that cracked my defenses. We talked beneath the awning while the rain softened around us. She worked long shifts delivering packages, saving for her sick mother's medicine. No degrees, no pedigree, just grit and tired hope. I told her nothing about my wealth. To her, I was another man waiting out the storm. She shared a story about her mother humming lullabies to stay awake during night shifts. Her words pierced the armor I had spent years polishing. When the cafe lights dimmed, we walked side by side through wet streets. The city felt smaller. Her presence made it warm. A closed bookstore offered us shelter. We leaned against its glass front, talking about little things. How she hated broken promises. How I hated pity. How neither of us planned to be here tonight. The rain stopped. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken need. She looked up at me, eyes bright under the street lamp. For a heartbeat, I forgot every warning I had built for myself. We ended up in a small rented room. The world outside dissolved. For the first time in years, I felt alive. She was gentle yet strong, her laughter shaky but real. There were no vows, no plans, only two lonely souls reaching for comfort. At sunrise, she dressed quietly. She whispered a shy goodbye and slipped out before I could speak. I stood there, staring at the door, unsure if it had been a dream. Back in my mansion, I convinced myself it was a fleeting mistake, the kind that stayed unspoken. I buried myself in work again, meetings, mergers, flights. The noise of business drowned out the memory of her touch. Weeks passed, then months. One humid afternoon, my assistant handed me a plain envelope, no return address. Inside was a photograph. Maya, her hair pulled back, her face pale but glowing. She stood in a hospital corridor holding two newborns wrapped in white cloth. The caption was handwritten, "They're yours." The room tilted. My throat tightened. I remembered the doctor's verdict. Impossible, they had said. I read the words again, searching for a trick, but the twins in her arms had my eyes, the same dark brown, sharp and certain. For the first time in years, my control cracked. Fear, shock, and something wild surged through me. I gripped the photograph as if it could steady the world. Everything I thought I knew about myself was broken in an instant. I stared at the picture until my vision blurred. The man who could buy anything now stood powerless before two tiny lives, and before a woman he barely knew. And before a woman he barely knew. I couldn't breathe. Empire felt small against that photograph. The city lights outside my office blurred like smeared paint. I called my driver. I ordered him to find her. No assistance, no press. This was not a headline. This was my life splitting open. 2 hours later, I stood outside a narrow apartment above a closed bakery. The paint peeled on the doorframe. A baby's soft cry leaked through the thin walls. I knocked once, then again. The door opened. Maya stood there, hair tied back, exhaustion under her eyes. She did not look surprised. She looked ready for a fight she didn't want. "Daniel," she said, almost a whisper. I stepped inside without speaking. The apartment was bare. A second-hand crib, a folded blanket on the couch, a single framed photo of her mother. 2 bassinets rested on the floor. 2 tiny faces peeked out, sleeping. I knelt down. My hands shook as I touched a small fist. They were real. They were mine. Against every prediction, they existed. Maya crossed her arms. I didn't want to chase you, she said, quietly. But they deserved to know their father. Her voice cut deeper than anger. It was tired, honest. I tried to speak, but the words stuck. I thought I couldn't. I was told. She nodded. I figured as much. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for promises. She asked for truth. Are you going to walk away? The question hit like a blow. I looked at the twins again. Their tiny chests rose and fell, unaware of the storm they'd stirred. No, I said. The word felt heavy, like a vow. Maya exhaled. A breath she had been holding for months. She handed me a folded paper, paternity test. Instructions. She wasn't reckless. She was certain. The clinic smelled of antiseptic and quiet, dread. We waited in a corner chair, avoiding each other's eyes. The nurse took samples, efficient and detached. Maya held one twin while I held the other. Their small warmth seeped into my chest. Days dragged. Buried myself in board meetings. Colleagues whispered when they saw my distraction. The envelope arrived on a Thursday morning. I locked my office door. I sat behind my desk and opened it. One sentence leapt from the page. Probability of paternity 99%. I dropped the paper. For the first time in years, I cried. That night I called Maya. She answered on the second ring. Come over, she said simply. The twins were awake, tiny fists waving in the air. Maya looked worn but beautiful. I told her I wanted to be part of their lives, not as a name on a check, as a father. She didn't smile. She searched my face for hesitation. Finally, she nodded. We'll take it one step at a time. We spent the evening feeding them in shifts. I changed a diaper clumsily while Maya laughed softly. Her laugh felt like light in a dark room. When I left, the city streets felt different. The weight of my empire seemed lighter compared to the weight of 2 sleeping infants. I knew the path ahead would be hard, but walking away was no longer an option. I drove home, the photograph still in my pocket. For the first time, my mansion didn't feel empty. It felt like a place waiting to be filled. It felt like a place waiting to be filled. The echo in my mansion no longer sounded clean. It sounded hollow. I walked past the framed awards on the walls, and they felt meaningless. 2 tiny faces now owned my thoughts. The next morning, I cleared my calendar. Meetings could wait. Contracts could wait. Life could not. I drove back to Maya's apartment with diapers, formula, and a bag of groceries. She opened the door, surprised but guarded. I said one step at a time, she reminded. I nodded. This is step 1, I said. Inside, the twins stirred in their bassinets. I picked one up, clumsy again but less afraid. Maya watched quietly, a small softness in her eyes. Her mother peeked from the kitchen doorway, her smile cautious but kind. We began to build small routines, morning visits, evening check-ins. I held bottles at 3 a.m. and learned the weight of responsibility in ounces and lullabies. Maya handled most things with calm precision. I was a student, awkward but eager. At work, whispers grew louder. Investors questioned my distraction. One executive made a cruel remark about the delivery girl who had caught the CEO. I fired him without hesitation. Some battles weren't worth analysis. The press got wind of a rumor. Photographers waited outside my building. Maya called, her voice shaking. I can't have them harassed, she said. I promised protection, not publicity. I hired security to watch discreetly. One night after the twins finally fell asleep, Maya and I sat on the couch in silence. Her mother had gone to bed. The city outside hummed softly through the window. She broke the quiet first. "What's your plan?" she asked. I took a deep breath. "To be here," I said. She looked skeptical. "You're used to control. Babies don't follow schedules." "I'll learn," I replied. Days turned into weeks. The twins began to recognize my voice. When I spoke, their eyes tracked me. That simple act unraveled something hardened inside. Maya started letting me take them for afternoon walks. I strapped them into a stroller and pushed them through the park. People stared. Some recognized. A woman whispered, "Is that really him?" For once I didn't care. At a board meeting, I announced reduced travel. A few men smirked. I ignored them. The empire I had built would survive. My children's first smiles would not wait. One afternoon, the twins both fell asleep on my chest. Their breaths were shallow and even. Maya watched from the doorway. For the first time, she smiled without reservation, but reality pressed. And Maya's rent was overdue. Her mother's health was fragile. The bakery downstairs was closing. Her world could collapse without warning. Made a choice. I offered to move them into my mansion, not as charity, but as family. Maya hesitated. "This isn't a fairy tale," she said. I stepped closer. "Neither is being alone," I replied. She agreed after a long silence. We moved boxes quietly, without fanfare. The mansion that once felt like a showroom now held baby blankets on the floor and bottles on marble counters. At night, the sound of their soft cries echoed through the halls. It was imperfect and alive. One evening, as we stood on the balcony watching the city lights, Maya spoke. "I never thought you'd stay," she whispered. I reached for her hand. "I didn't either," I admitted. In that moment, the weight of my old life felt distant. The future, fragile and uncertain, felt closer than ever. The future, fragile and uncertain, felt closer than ever. The city lights flickered below us like restless stars. Inside, the twins slept in their new cribs, their soft breaths filling the once empty halls. Morning routines formed, quietly. Maya made coffee while I changed diapers. Her mother hummed lullabies in the kitchen. Left for the office later than I used to, but I came home earlier. The mansion, once a monument to success, now smelled of baby powder and warm meals. The board resisted at first. Some members whispered about weakness, but profits held steady. I delivered results between midnight feedings and dawn emails. I stopped attending every gala. Instead, I read bedtime stories to two tiny faces who clutched my fingers. Maya and I argued, sometimes about late-night calls, about how much I spoiled the twins with new toys. But the arguments always ended with quiet apologies and shared laughter. We weren't perfect, we were real. One winter evening, a fever struck one of the twins. We rushed to the hospital, fear tightening every breath. The doctors moved quickly. Maya gripped my hand so hard it hurt. When the fever broke hours later, relief left us trembling. We held each other in the sterile hallway, too exhausted to speak. That night in the hospital room's soft light, I saw the truth. These children had remade me. They had stripped away the armor I'd worn for years. I wasn't the untouchable CEO anymore. I was a father. Weeks later, I took the twins to the park for the first time alone. The air was crisp, the sky clear. A stranger on a bench recognized me. She smiled and said, "I thought you didn't have kids." I smiled back, holding the stroller handle firmly. "I do now," I replied. Maya joined us, her coat wrapped tight against the cold. She handed me a thermos of coffee and brushed a leaf from my shoulder. The twins giggled as the wind caught their hats. For a moment, the world felt simple. Back home, we decorated a small tree in the living room. Maya strung the lights while I lifted the twins to place ornaments. Her mother watched from the couch, tears shining in her eyes. The glow of the tree cast gentle shadows across the walls. Later, after the twins were asleep, Maya and I stood in the doorway of their room. She whispered, "I didn't think we'd make it here." I slipped an arm around her. "Neither did I said quietly. We didn't need grand promises. We needed to keep choosing this life, every day." As I watched the twins breathing peacefully, I thought of the night in the rain, the accident that wasn't an accident, the photograph that shattered my certainty, the diagnosis that had been wrong. Life had rewritten my script without warning. The future would not be flawless. There would be sleepless nights, boardroom battles, and old wounds to mend. But as the first snow began to fall outside, I understood something simple.